Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with another tutorial video on, this time it's going to be about um, basically improving skills through use. And so what this one is going to be about is going to be using an array to track the party members and a skill level and a skill usage. So basically, the more times you use a skill, or I should say, each time you use a skill, you gain experience. And once you reach a certain experience threshold, your skill will increase, and then your experience is reset, and you'll continue, to use it and gain experience, and then you can increase your skill again. So this is all about having skills that have different levels to them. Let's say in this particular one, it's thieving skill. So you have a thieving skill, and by using it, you can improve the skill. And you have to use it a certain number of times. And of course, this is all set by you as the developer, the designer of the game. And basically, you're increasing skills by usage. And again, we're going to use an array to track the party member, their level, their skill level of a particular thing, and then their usage of it to know when it's time for them to increase. Again, I'll just throw out my caveats. This is, I don't claim to be an expert. These are all of these tutorials are just my effort to give back to the community. And these are things that I have determined that work. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do it or the most efficient way to do it, or that there's not some plugin out there that does similar things. This is just how to use events to do things that you might want to do, and it's just to give people like a basis, a foundation to build off of, and to explore and to learn new things. So again, not an expert, don't claim to be. I may find better ways to do some of these things, but this is just one way to do this concept. And I built this quite a long time ago. I just hadn't shared it yet, so I'm trying to catch up on some of these tutorial videos. As I've said, in some of my other videos, I don't spend a lot of time on fancy graphics right now. I'm more interested in learning the engine, MZ, and what I can build with it through events. And I'm trying to learn JavaScript as well. So I'm trying to to improve upon that. I don't know if there's any other disclaimers. I can't remember. If you've watched some of my older videos, older tutorials, then you may remember it from there. Regardless, let me show you how this is working. And some of this will be repeated, or I should say, let me turn my volume down here. Okay, so when I build events, I basically have them tell me what they're doing at different stages so I can make sure that they're doing what I want them to do. I wouldn't necessarily have these text feedbacks, show text feedbacks in a game. So I'm going to go down here, I'm going to click on this person, and it's a lockpicking specialist. And he says, would you like to practice your lockpicking skills? Well, yes, because that's what I'm experimenting with. So yes or no. If I say no, we'll come back if you change your mind. And then he exits. I click on him again. Would you like to practice your lockpicking skills? Yes, I would. So we're going to do a die roll here, like a D&D style die 20 roll. So I got an 8. And then it says Reed's lockpicking skill bonus is 0. So his Reed's lockpicking skill or thieving skill is 0, so doesn't have any skill in it. But he does have an agility bonus of 1. So that results in an 8 as the final roll, and that's a failure. You failed. Your lockpicking skill is still 0, right? So my skill is 0. But it does say that my skill is 0, but I have my experience is 1 because I used it once and I failed. Okay, so I got 1 experience point for it. Would you like to practice some more? Of course I would. So I got a 12. I don't have any bonus for my skill. I have my agility bonus. That gives me a 13. I failed again. My skill is still 0. But I got another experience point, even though I failed. And this is just a design concept, okay? It's actually the functionality behind it that's important. This is just a design concept. Do you want to do it again? Yes, I do. I got a 10, which is going to give me an 11. I still failed, but now I have 3 experience points. We're going to try to get a pass here. Let's see. Nope. Okay, I still failed. This is just because I randomly set the value for success and failure. I set it at like 15, so it's a pretty high it's a pretty high requirement for success. So now I have 4 experience. Now I know, because I built this, that the next experience point I get is going to increase my skill. So I want to practice again. Now this time I'm gonna succeed. So I got a 17. I don't have any bonus from my skill. I have 1 agility bonus. That's an 18. I succeeded. Success. Your skill improved because my experience was more than 5, or 5 or more. Your lockpicking skill is now 1. So it's now going to show that my skill is 1, but my experience is back to 0 because it reset the counter. Do I want to do it some more? Well, yes, I do. And I get a 1, which is pretty the lowest possible, but I now have a bonus of 1 for my skill. I still have my agility bonus. I get a 3. I failed. My skill is 1, and my experience is 1. I'd really like to see what happens when I succeed, so you can see it. Nope, it's boy, these are the worst rolls I have gotten so far. So I'm still going to increase my skill by my experience by 1. Let's see. Okay, this one I'm gonna succeed. So I got a 13. I get 1 for my skill, 1 for my agility. That gives me a 15, which means success. However, your lockpicking skill is still 1, but now my experience is 4 because I got a +2 for a successful. So I got +1 for using it and failing, but I got a +4. I'm sorry, I got a +2 if I do it successfully. Again, this is just the design of the functionality. You can do whatever you want to here. Let's do a few more. So again, I'm going to fail. This should give me a 5 in my experience. Yep. So let's see. Yep, I'm going to pass. And it's going to give me, I should have a 7 now in my experience. Yes, I do. I'm going to do a couple more because I'm going to kick the threshold over to the next level. So I'm going to succeed again. So I got a 17. That means I'm going to have a 9 in my experience. Yep, there we go. And I know that I set the threshold at 10 for the next level. So whether I succeed or fail, I'm going to increase my skill. So yes, I succeeded. And my skill improved. It's now 2. And my experience counter is back to 0 because it's not going to keep counting. It's going to reset at 0. And now my skill is 2. And just if we do it one more time, so I got a 2. I now have a bonus of 2 for my skill level, my agility bonus of 1, so that should give me a total of 5, which it does. I'm still failed, and it's tracking my XP. So that's how it functions. And again, so do I want to practice some more? No, I do not. Now, let me show you this. Come back if you change your mind. If I come back, it's going to remember. It should remember because that's the way it's built. So I get a 13. I'm going to succeed this time because I got a 2 for my skill bonus and a 1 for my agility. Gives me a 16. Success. Your lockpicking skill is still 2. So again, it remembers that my skill is 2. And my experience is now 3 because it remembered my experience from before, even though I left. And that's the way it's, of course, supposed to work. So no, I do not want to do this anymore. Come back if you change your mind. All right, so that's how it functions. And again, I just set, randomly decided what the threshold for success would be versus failure, how much experience it would take to go to the next level, how much experience you gain from a success, how much experience you gain from a failure, that sort of thing. That's all stuff that you can, change at will. To just change the thresholds and such. But here's how it works. So first of all, let me show you this event first. So all this event is doing, it's running in parallel. So it's stuck up here in the corner where nobody can walk on it. It's below the characters, so no one can touch it anyway. It's parallel, so it's going to automatically run. right? A parallel event will automatically run when the map loads. And all this event is doing is it is setting the thief skill for read to 0. So variable 161 read thief skill is set to 0. Now at the beginning of a game, all variables should be set to 0. All switches should be off. But for testing purposes, I'm just doing this anyway. The parallel event is making this 0. Then I have these comments. The comments are intended to explain the contents of the array. So here's this control variable, 201, lock picking skill. That variable is going to be used to store an array. And the array is simply the potential party members' names, so read through Rosa, and it's going to also track their level of the skill and their experience in the skill. So what this is saying is read down here. So the array contains both string values and number values. So the value read as a string, okay, is the position 0. So when I want to access the array and call read the value of read out, then that's position 0. And again, I'll show you this in a minute. The read's level for lockpicking is the position 1 in the array. So here, a value of 0. And then the experience tracker is position 2, which is actually the third position because the positions in an array start at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you need to be able to keep track of this if you're going to do this sort of thing. So the idea of this is that you can use arrays to track the skill level and experience of using the skill for all potential party members. And then you can just access and store that single array. And essentially, one variable is being used to keep track of all of that data. And then when you pull it out, you can reuse variables. So, basically, for instance, the skill level of the actor, right? And that could be whether it's Reed, Priscilla, Gail, Michelle, it doesn't matter. As long as you're only accessing it one at a time, you can reuse those variables to access this data. And you're using only one variable to keep track of all this data. So you conserve and save variables. So this is what the comments are doing. They're explaining which positions each of these things are in so that when you have to go back and reference it, you can quickly find it. And so the array is set up as control variable, right? So I select my variable, lockpicking skill. I'm setting it to a script. And then your array, you make an array by having brackets. Anything in between the brackets is in your array. And as you can see, I did character as a string. So actor, read, in parentheses, right? Because that makes it, I'm sorry, in quotations, because that makes it a string. So it's going to be the letters, comma, the numerical value of the skill, the numerical value of the experience, and then the next character, Priscilla, in quotations, 0, 0. And then Gail, 0. And I'm not going to go through this, but you have to just basically type this out. And you can see it here. So when I scroll across, you see I've got Reed 00, Priscilla 00, Gail 00, Michelle 00, Albert 00, Casey 00, Elliot 00, Rosa 00. And you can do this with however many potential actors, potential party members you have in your game. So once it sets up the array, right, it's running in parallel, it does this immediately, then it's setting a control self switch for this event, A to on, so that it can simply move to this page. So the page conditions on page 2 are self switch A, and there's no contents, right? So basically it's not going to do anything anymore. This page runs automatically when the map loads one time. turns on the self switch, advances to this page, because now this page is the highest page where the conditions are met, and it's not going to do anything anymore. It's just going to sit there. So that's what I want. Okay, so that's the first thing. I wanted to show how I set up my array, and you can do that any way you want. You can set that array up anywhere you want, right? In the beginning of a game, you would set up all your arrays at the very launch of the game. Now, what is the event actually doing? It's not terribly complicated. Did take me a while to make sure I was doing it right, but it's not terribly complicated. I have my little sprite so that I can interact with them, same as character, so I can actually reach them. I can actually touch them, interact with them, and then the trigger is action button. So basically, I click on the event and it runs. So what did it do? First thing, it showed me the text. Would you like to practice your lockpicking skills? Right. So that's the first thing it did, and that's it. So use the show text. Right. Then I have a label start. This is important because when we get to the end where it says, "Do you want to continue practicing?" and if I say yes, it's going to jump back to this label. It's going to jump to label start, and it'll just flow through the event again. Okay. So I have my label start here. Which you, of course, could label anything that makes sense. So then what is it doing? Well, it's going to take two variables, so lockpicking skill level and lockpicking skill EXP for experience. Again, you could name these anything you want. I would probably name these differently now, but basically, you can reuse these variables because they're only going to be used one at a time. So it doesn't matter which actor I'm doing. It doesn't matter which party member I'm involved with. As long as I'm only engaging one at a time, I can reuse these variables. So variable 200, so control variable, right? 200, lock picking skill level is set to, and now this is where I'm accessing the array. So let me go back here. If you remember, this array is 201. So 201 variable is the array. Okay, so here, this variable is being set to $game variables dot value, and then 201 is the variable. Okay, 201 is the variable. And since it's an array, I have to say which value I want to access, right? Which value do I want to retrieve? And if you remember, 0 is the string read. I don't want that. I want read's skill level. So that's position 1 in the array. And then I'm going to do another variable, 199, lock picking skill exp, or basically experience, right? This is the tracker for how much experience have you gained in that skill. So it's going to be set to $game variables dot value. Again, the variable is 201, which is an array, and the position that I need to access is position 2, which is actually the third value, right? So it's 0 is read, 1 is read's skill level, and then 3, right? So 0, no, I'm sorry. I'm confusing myself already. So the position 0 is read, position 1 is the skill level, position 2 is the experience in that skill, right? And that's position 2, even though it's the third value. It's it can get a little confusing, and you have to try to remember which things start at position 0 and which ones start at 1 for a value. Okay, so that's the first thing it's doing. It's taking these two reusable variables and setting their values to the content of the array for read. Now, I will just say, for this demonstration, I only used one character. I just used read. But if we were to combine this event with a previous event I just did about choosing which party member you want to act, you could do that. And then you would just access the positions of the array depending on which party member is taking the action, right? Okay, so those are the two variables there. And basically, you're using the script field, right? Because you can use this essentially script that you can access the values of that array. So again, script, control variable as a event command. Now, what's happening down here? So first, we're going to use another variable, 164, read agility, and we're going to set that to the agility of read. So when you're doing control variables, you select your variable, right? Use the set command. You can access game data. And part of the game data that you can access is the different actors, and you can access all of their essential like abilities or whatever these different things are, right? So you can access that as part of game data. So that's what I did here is I said I want to take the agility of read and I want to use that. But I don't want a really high value like, default RPG Maker, the values are like 30, 40, 50, whatever. I wanted more of a D&D type thing. So, the most attributes are a maximum of 18, unless there's special things. But so I wanted lower values. So I took because I'm lazy and I wanted to use what was already in the database. I took the agility of read and then I'm going to divide it by 20 because that way I'm going to whatever read's agility is, it's high up there. I'm going to divide it by 20, and that way it will give me a much lower bonus. So again, took read's agility, which was already set to the agility of read, and then I'm sorry, um, constant of 20. Yes, I'm sorry, but it is. Wait a second. Sorry, what did I do? Why that should say divide. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I just didn't see that. I looked right over it. Oh my goodness. So it's set to divide, right? So divide by 20, and that's going to do the math for me. So first, I set the variable 164 to the agility of read. Then I take that agility of read and I divide it by 20, and that's going to give me my new value for 164. That's my bonus for agility. So then it's going to do the show choices. Do basically the use show choices event command. So show choices, yes or no, right? And I highlighted these options in my last video when I was doing the script, but you can play around with these if you want to. Background, just whether it's a window, dim, transparent, the window position, right, left, middle, and then what's your default choice, what's your cancel choice. Okay, so so first thing it does is when yes, you're going to do all of this, and then later on when no, way down here at the bottom, it's going to basically say, oh, well, if you don't want to do this, come back, right? Come back if you change your mind, and then exit. So the question was, do you want to practice? Yes or no? When yes, it's going to take a variable and it's going to roll a die 20 basically. So I just took a variable 163 skill system random. In reality, I would probably have a variable that is a 1 die 20 roll, and I would reuse that. Actually, I have one of those. I just didn't use it for this one when I built it. And this variable is being set to random from 1 to 20. So here you go, random 1 to 20. This is going to generate a number from 1 and 20, right, inclusive. So it's going to generate that number. Then it's going to tell me what it was. So I'm going to use show text. Dice roll result is /v163 in brackets. There's 163. It's showing me the value of the variable, right? And there it is. And as you remember, if you hover over text, it'll show you the different types of things you can put in there. /v is going to be the nth variable, the value of the nth variable, whatever number you plug in it. So it's the value of variable 163. So again, when I'm testing things, when I build things, I want the event to show me what it's doing so I can make sure I can try to catch any mistakes as I'm going. So then it's going to take this roll, this 1 die 20 roll, so variable 163, skill system random, and it's going to add the lock picking skill level, which was 0 originally, but it's going to add that. And then it's going to take that same variable, 163, and it's also going to add Reed's agility bonus. Remember, the bonus was divided by 20, so it's much lower. So could I have done this on one line using a script? Yes, I could. So instead of doing this one math at a time, right? Instead of doing one math at a time, where I'm taking the variable and I'm adding the value of another variable, instead of doing that one at a time, I could have used a script to add both of them at the same time. But sometimes it's just faster to use the built-in event commands to do it. So anyway, that's what's happening. You're using variable 163, rolling a 1 to 20. Then you're adding to that the skill level. It's at 0 now, so it'll still be whatever the random number was. And then again, you're adding in Reed's agility, which in the demo it was a value of 1. So you're adding 1 in, so it'd be the random number plus 1. That's your final value of 163. And then what it does is, again, it's going to show us in text what those values are. So it's going to say Reed's lockpicking skill bonus is /V200, so that's the value of variable 200. That's this one. And then Reed's agility bonus is /V164, the value of 164, right up here. Okay. Then it's going to show the final roll result. So final dice roll result /V163 after we did our math. So I can tell all along the way that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Again, you can eliminate this in your game after you figure out it's actually working. So now the next thing it does is it has to figure out, were you successful or not? So this is where this first conditional branch comes in. And you look all the way down, this whole thing is the first conditional branch. And it stops where we're going to jump to label skill data. So this is a big conditional branch. And the first thing it's doing is it's saying if the skill system random, right? So that's that modified die 20 roll. If it's greater than or equal to 15, then do this, right? Basically, you succeeded. Now, how do I know where the else is? Well, first of all, is there an else? If I do an edit, oh, there is an else branch because I put one there. So if this variable is greater than or equal to 15, then do something else, do something different. So how do I know where the else is? Well, I'm going to basically put my cursor here, and I'm going to go down until I hit the else. And there it is. So there's my else. Do this if it's not. If it's basically less than 15, do this. This is the failure part. Okay? So it lines up perfectly fine with that. All right? So I'm back up here to the if. If this modified roll is greater than or equal to 15, then the first thing it's going to do, I'm going to use a script, and I'm going to essentially, I'm going to modify the value in the array 201. So I'm going to modify the value in position 2 of that array, and that is the experience of Reed for this skill. So it's the experience tracker. So $game variables dot value, and remember your capitals, right? So pay attention to your capital letters. The variable is 201, it's in parentheses, and then in brackets, the position in the array that value is in. So we're going to take that, it was originally set at 0, and we're going to set it to the same thing plus 2. So I'm essentially adding plus 2 to it. And I'm using the script command to do that. Okay, so that's what it looks like in script. So I'm saying, hey, you know that value in the array in position 2? Well, essentially, set that to that same value plus 2. So I'm adding to it. Okay. Now, if I were to just click on this, I would be doing the event commands, page 3, advanced, script. That's how I'm getting to that, right? Okay, so that's the first thing this is doing. This is just adding to that value in the array, in the value at position 2. Then it's going to take that variable 199 that we saw before, the lockpicking skill experience, and it's setting it to that modified value because we added 2 to it. So it changed. So rather than just add 2 to this, right, I want to access the array, get the current value, and then later on, we'll modify the array. And then when I access it again, it'll have a new value. So it's taking that variable 199 and it's setting it to the value of the third position in the array, right? I should say, sorry, the second position, right? The skill at exp of read. So that's what this part is doing. It does that as soon as you get a successful roll. Then it has to figure out, okay, well, does the skill of read need to increase, right? Or has read gained enough experience to increase the skill? So now there's going to be some nested conditional branches underneath this conditional branch. So this is the main conditional branch. Now I'm going to add a nested conditional branch. And you can see that it's shorter and there's a bunch of them. So basically what I did was I made this one, then I copied and pasted it to the next one, and I just modified some values. So if nested conditional branch, so if lockpicking skill level is equal to 0, that means they have no skill yet, right? And so this is a nested conditional branch underneath this conditional branch. If the lockpicking skill exp is greater than or equal to 5, meaning that you've accumulated 5 or more experience points. So if your skill is 0 and your tracker for experience is 5 or greater, then it's going to change the values in that array using a script. So what's the first thing it's doing? Well, first thing, $game variables dot value 201 is the array. 1 is the so position number 1, which is the skill level of read. We're setting that to $game variables dot value array 201 position position 1 plus 1. So we're adding 1 to that value in the array. And a semicolon because we're going to do something else. Instead of doing like different command lines, we're going to use the same script. And it's going to be $game variables dot value 201. And we're taking the value at position 2, which is the experience tracker, and we're setting it to 0. Because once you gain a level in your skill, your experience tracker goes back to 0. So you can start counting again. Again, this is all up to you to decide how you're going to do it, but this is just the way I built it. So this is a script, right? That's what it looks like. And that's what it's doing. It's updating the values in that array for read because of the positions that I'm choosing. Then what it does is it takes those two variables that we saw earlier that we were using, right? And it's going to set the first one, lockpicking skill level, right? Variable 200 is being set to the value in the first position of that array. So array 201 or variable 201, the array, the value in the first position, which is read's skill level. And then it's setting this lockpicking skill experience to, again, same thing. So with a script, $game variables dot value, variable 201, the array, the value in position 2, which is read's experience. And again, just a reminder, using the script field. Okay. Then it's going to give us a message, right? So we figured out, right, if the skill is 0, but you've accumulated 5 or more, then we're going to update the array. We're going to take the array values and put them to these variables so we can use them for display purposes. And then in the text, it says, success, your skill improved. Your lockpicking skill is now /V200, right? The updated value from the array. And then it's going to jump to label skill data. Okay, so we'll get there. So It'll jump forward. It'll skip all the rest of this and jump down to skill data. That's if this first part is true. Else, meaning that this else branch is here. So this else branch, so if I'm here and I edit this, there is no else. Okay, there is no else for this top condition. This condition is the one that has the else branch. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. So this one has the else. So if your skill level 0 and if your experience accumulated is essentially less than 5, because if it's 5 or greater, it's going to do this. Else, meaning it's less than 5, it's going to do this. And what is it doing? It's simply taking those two variables, 290 and 199, setting it to the values, the appropriate values from the array. And then it gives you your message, success. However, your lockpicking skill is still /V 200. So you didn't increase your skill, right? And then it jumps to skill data. So regardless of whether your skill improved or it didn't improve, you're jumping to skill data. Now, for a bunch of more conditional branches, it's the same thing. So this one was if it's greater, if it's 0 and greater than 5, right? That was the greater than or equal to 5. The next one is if your skill level is 1 and your experience is greater than or equal to 10. So again, you could mess around with these values. Originally, I had these values set higher, and it just was a pain to test. So I dropped all the values down so I could test it easier. So now it checked if you're 0 and greater than or equal to 5, or else less than 5. But what if your skill is 1, right? And then it's going to check, do you have 10 or more experience? If so, improve the skill. Else, so if it's less than 10, you still succeeded, but you're not going to improve your skill. So essentially, this is a copy and paste of this. The only thing that changed is I changed the value here to 1, and I changed the value here to 10. This is the same, this is the same, this is the same, and this whole thing is the same. So no editing whatsoever. And then the same with the next one. So this is just a copy and paste. Change this to a 2, right? Change this to a 2, because now your skill level is 2. Change this to a 15. Again, I dropped the numbers so that I could test it easier. In reality, I would probably set this much, much higher, because the higher your skill, the more use it takes to increase your skill level. Okay? But all of the rest of this is the same. It's doing exactly the same as it did before. Same thing down here. So basically the way I built this was, actually you'll see it. You'll see what I did. So here, this is just a copy and paste, and change this to a 3, change this to a 20. All the rest of this is the same. And then this one is basically, this is set up where if your skill level is greater than or equal to 4, right? So meaning that it'll accommodate higher skills, right? Whether you throw your skill at 5, whether you set it at 5, or whether you go higher. And originally I had this the experience at 100, right? So it would, once you hit a certain level, your use maybe hits a plateau. I don't know. It's entirely up to you. But the way I just built this, I said, okay, look, if it's greater than or equal to 4, so once you get to level 4, if your experience is greater than or equal to 25, right? So I changed these two values. All of this stays the same. Okay, and eventually, right? So what'll happen? Wait, sorry, 1 second. So what'll happen? Well, if it gets above 25, or I should say if it hits 25 or above, it's going to increase your skill. So the next time this runs, it will be, because your value will be 5. Well, 5 is greater than or equal to 4, right? So that it'll keep operating. It'll keep adding to the skill. This gets reset to 0. So once this, you know, if you think about it, if your skill level's 5, it still accommodates this because it'll be greater than or equal to 4. And once you hit 25, it'll increase your skill again. And your skill will be 6. And that still meets the requirements of this. The experience will be set to 0. So it will be here. Anything above a 4 or above will be operating in this area. So it just keeps going. And so as long as you know that your experience is going to stay capped, how much you have to use it to increase to increase your levels, then that's cool. If you don't want to do that, if you want to keep making it harder and harder, then you'd have to keep making these conditional branches, right? But in theory, if you knew that you always wanted your skills to improve after the same amount of experience, you only really need probably maybe 2 of these, right? So once you hit 1, you could make it greater than or equal to 1, and then your experience would stay the same, and it would still do the same thing as this is doing. Okay. All right. So that finishes up the success, right? That finishes up the success. Now this is the else, meaning that you didn't get a 15 or higher, right? You didn't get a 15 or higher. So this is the else branch. Here we go, else, right? And it's going to be essentially be the same as above. It's just you're gaining the language is a little different. And I made it where here, instead of gaining 2 for a successful use of the skill, you only gain 1. So, and again, you could do whatever you want to here, or whatever makes sense. So when you use a skill successfully, you get +2 for your tracking of usage. When you fail, you get a +1. Now, maybe you want to tweak that. Maybe you want to make the usage higher when you succeed, the tracker higher when you succeed, and you want to keep it very low when they fail, right? Whatever. You can do whatever you want. But then the rest of this is set essentially the same. So it's going to increase the value of that position in the array, and then it's going to set it to the lockpicking skill experience, right? And then it's going to do those conditional branch checks, right? Just like it did above. So if your skill level 0, but your experience is greater than or equal to 5, then update the array, update the values, and then this is where the text changes a little bit, because it says you're in that else area, right? You got below a 15 on your modified roll. So you failed, but your skill still improved because you're under this area, greater than or equal to 5. So your skill improved. Yay! Your skill is now this, jump to skill data. Else, meaning you didn't have enough accumulated skill points, right? You didn't have enough accumulated experience. It updates the variables. It says you failed. Your lockpicking skill is still this, right? And then you jump to skill data. Skill data is basically telling you what your new values are of your level and your experience. Okay, and then so this is the first one, and then just like previously in the success ones, this is just a copy and paste from above, and you change this to a 1. I change this to a 10 because that's what I wanted to do. All of the rest of this stays the same. Language stayed the same, right? Modifying the array and updating the variables all stayed the same. Same thing here. This is just a copy and paste from above. Change this to a 2, change this to a 15. All of this stays the same. Same thing here. Copy and paste from above. Change this to a 3, change this to a 20. All this stays the same. And then finally this one, just like a copy and paste from above, change this to a 4, change this to a 25. This will now be the one that gets run. Once you hit this level, this is what will be run forever if you keep doing this. Could be a skill level of 10, and it will still keep doing this. All right. So nothing else changes. So that goes through the what if I'm successful, what if I fail, and how to update the array and how to update the values. Now, label skill data. This is where we were jumping. Every time we had that jump to label skill data, we were dropping down here, skill data. This is where that text is showing us. Reads lockpicking skill is the value of this variable. Reads lockpicking skill experience is the value of this variable, right? That's why we were updating variable 200 and variable 199 with the new values from the array. And then you get your text choice. Would you like to practice some more? Okay. And would you like to practice some more and jump to start? That's interesting. Why that is something's missing there. Uh, there's no choices there. Would you like to practice some more? Uh, why are my things missing? When no, come back if you change your mind. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to practice some more? And you jump to label start. I see. I'm sorry. There's nothing missing there. I'm reusing the show choices. So, would you like to practice some more? Jump to label start. We go all the way back up to label start, and this is where it sets, it does the calculation of the variables, right? It sets the variables to the necessary data, and then you get your show choices, yes and no, right? So cool. And then if you say no, right? So you decide you don't want to practice again, it just drops you down here and to when no, come back if you change your mind, exit the event. If you say yes, it just flows through this all over again. Okay, and that's the end of the event. So once again, the most important part, right? The most important parts of this are you've got to have your array. So you got to have your array set up, right? And now whether you have, say for instance, you have an array for each skill that lists all of your potential party members, or whether you have a really massive array that has all your party members with a whole bunch of skills, or whether you have an array for each party member, right? And say, okay, I'm going to access, Reed is going to have an array with all of Reed's skills and experience tracking, right? For however many skills there are. So anyway, there's a bunch of ways to do this, but this is the most important. Well, this is a very important part: setting your array and making sure you know what positions the values are that you have to access. Remember, it starts at position 0, right? Position 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Then, right, we're going to be using a couple variables that we can show the skill level and the experience tracker. We're going to be updating that with the value from the array, okay, which is very, very easy to do, to access values from within an array. You just have to know the position of the value in that array. Okay, and then you do your agility modifier to make sure you know what the bonus is. You do your random roll. You modify that with the skill level bonus and the agility bonus. The event's telling you what's doing, so you know you're not going to make any mistakes. And then you have that massive conditional branch, the if else, where if it's greater than or equal to 15, then do the success one, and else do the failure one. And then again, you have to, if you're succeeding, you're updating the array with that value of the array, the experience, by 2. And if you fail, you're only updating it by 1. But again, you make your choice of how you want to do that. And then these are just those repeated conditional branches of how to know when to increase the skill, right? If it's 0 and then the experience is greater than or equal to 5, do this part, and else if it's less than 5, do this part. Basically, don't improve the skill. This one improves the skill and sets the experience to 0, and this one doesn't improve the skill and it keeps tracking the experience. And then this is a repeat from above, just changing the value, changing this to a 1 and this to a 10. This is the same, just changing those two values. This is the same, changing those two values. This is the same, changing those two values, and then this can just be repeated over and over and over again. However many levels you want to go up, it will work the same. And then this is that else for if your die 20 modified roll is less than 15, that's a failure. And again, it's changing the value of your array. It's adding 1 to it. And you have to update the variables that you're using to display using the new value from the array. And then this is just a repeat, very similar to above, right? Your skill level and your experience. And if it's more than the necessary required, then you increase the skill. Else, so if it's less, then you don't increase the skill. And then this is a repeat, and this is a repeat, just update those two variables. This is a repeat, update those two values. This is a repeat, update these two values, and this will repeat forever as long as you keep doing it. And really, the biggest difference between the else area and the success and the failure area is the language that you're using, right? Instead of adding 2, you're adding 1, and then the language. You failed instead of you succeeded, right? And then your skill data is just basically showing you the new values so that you can see what is the current skill, what is the experience tracker, and then asking, do you want to do it some more? And if so, jump to label start, right? So I use labels a lot. I use labels to jump forward and backwards in events. If I want to skip something in an event, I jump forward. If I want to go back to repeat something, I jump to label backwards. And it's very useful. It's very helpful. And then that's it. Okay, that's the whole thing. So again, I hope this is helpful. This is something I definitely plan on doing. I'm going to keep looking for ways to improve upon this. But I know that I want to have skills that my different party members have that are increased by usage. Now, I also want the skills to potentially be increased other ways. Maybe you'll find an item that increases your skill. Maybe if I do level ups, maybe you can choose to increase a skill at level up. Maybe an item, you could read a book. Maybe you read a book and it improves one of your skills. So I wanted a way to improve skills by both usage and then by other means, level up, items, whatever, that sort of thing. And then of course you have to decide, how you want to design it as far as how much use do you need to gain a level. Is it going to always be the same? So you use it a certain amount of time and that automatically increases to the next level and each level is the same amount of uses? Or do you have a scaling, right? The higher your level gets in a skill, the longer it takes to improve. So you can't just sit there and grind, practice something and say, oh, every time I use my skill 10 times, I'm going to get a new level. It over time, the higher level you get, the more it takes to improve that through usage, right? So anyway, that's all stuff you can do, you can figure out. Uh, so I think this is very helpful. This is definitely something this concept is something I'm definitely going to be using. I hope this is helpful for you. If you do find this helpful, or if you find these videos in general helpful, or if you even just appreciate the effort that goes into doing these to try to give back and share, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, leaving comments. I try to respond to each comment that I get. As long as something weird doesn't happen. Sometimes I'll see a comment, I'll get a notification of a comment, and when I go to try to respond to it, that comment's gone. So I don't know whether the people delete them or what. But anyway, I do try to respond to comments when I see them. Again, my whole intent in doing this is to share things that I've learned to do that I know work based on the testing I've done, and hopefully it helps other people. And if you decide to use this and it makes you think about other things and you build on it and you improve on it, awesome, that's cool. Love to hear how you incorporated it or how you improved upon it. Or if you see something that says, hey, you know what, you could do this a different way, you could make it better. By all means, leave a comment. I'm happy to receive those and to learn from them as well. So anyway, I'm trying to get caught up on tutorials. I'm trying to get caught up on videos. I'm on vacation. I have some more downtime, so I'm trying to more quiet time, I should say. So I'm trying to get these videos caught up. I'm trying to get more posted. Again, hope these help people. And until I can get the next video up, and I'm working on different things, still experimenting, and still got stuff to catch up on. Until I can get more stuff out there, happy gaming, happy game developing, and I'll see everybody later. Bye.